Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning, and I'm simply delighted that the organizers thought to put me between you and your break. Thank you very, very much. My name is Gillian Smith, and under normal circumstances, I work as the Executive Director and CEO of the Institute for Canadian Citizenship, and I'd like to use my time today to talk about integration and inclusion. And I say under normal circumstances, I work as the ED of the ICC because over the last 4 months, my life has been anything but normal. And move the slide. There we go. On Christmas Day, I delivered twin girls who are here today, who are here in the photo. And it's not actually a coincidence. You may have heard about twin girls that were born on Christmas Day a little earlier. Their Papa Paul mentioned them in his remarks. But the agenda busters are Clémentine on the left and Aurélie on the right. And I'm not putting them up there just so I can brag about our girls. But I put the photo up because I've been spending the last 4 months in a rocking chair with these girls thinking. It's kind of strange not to be moving like this constantly this morning. But a lot of what I've been thinking about is my work and how that work on citizenship has now intersected with my life with 2 of Canada's newest citizens. And I've been daydreaming a lot about their future and in turn about the future of our country. And in fact, I should be daydreaming about their future and their children's future and their children's future and 7 out. But life with twins is not all daydreaming, rocking, and cute smiles. It's actually a hell of a lot of work. And what I came to learn and humbly recognize is that having twins is too much work for just me. And as I came to learn, or what happened, in fact, is in the first month, I lost 50 pounds, just like that. And every new mom looks at me and just shakes her fist at me. But it actually wasn't a particularly happy story because I wasn't finding time to eat. And any other new mom will tell you, if you're not eating, eventually the babies aren't eating. And so I met poor Paul at the door one night, and I was crying, and the babies were wailing in the background, and I just said, you know, help. So if you want to know how to oversee a crown corporation or successfully diffuse a crazy wife at the door, please see Paul later on this morning. But Paul agreed, and we knew that we needed some help. And that help came in the form of Lynn, who is a trained operating nurse originally from the Philippines. Lynn now has an open work permit and has applied for permanent residency. But despite having lived in Canada and paid her taxes for more than 3 years, she has very few connections to the country, and her quest to work as a nurse in Canada is challenged, to say the least. She was told before she immigrated to Canada that she'd be able to work as a nurse. Once she arrived as a sponsored live-in nanny, she was then told that she had to wait years until she became a permanent resident before her credentials would be even be assessed. But now she's on the path to permanent residency, but her skills are more than 3 years out of date. And the types of work that she's able to do, caring for infants like our girls, or in the second of her 3 jobs, she cares for a man who's got debilitating MS. Those professions don't count as nursing to the Ontario nursing authorities. And just last week, Lynn heard that her paper credentials aren't enough for Ontario and that she now has to pay another $200 on top of the $700 she's already paid to have the privilege of writing a multiple choice exam and to be tested in a practical clinical situation with actors posing as patients. Now, if any of you is a fan of the show Seinfeld, you'll remember that the character Kramer, as an actor, portrayed all of these different clinical situations as a patient. And it was ridiculous, to say the least. So Lynn is caught in this Kafkaesque or perhaps Seinfeldian nightmare. This is a woman with a commerce degree, a nursing degree. She's just completed a degree in social work here in Canada. She worked in the largest hospital in Manila, which is far larger than any hospital we have here in Canada. But here in Canada, she spends her weekdays with me, her weeknights working at Good Life Fitness, washing the towels for the gym rats, and her weekends caring for her other client. She works 7 days on 7 and is unfailingly cheerful, professional, and one of the most dedicated workers and human beings I've had the pleasure of meeting. Now, don't you think that Canada would be well served if we put her true training to work? I think it's a bit of a rhetorical question. I tell you Lynn's story and my story because over the span of the last 4 months, I've had the chance in my own home to contemplate life for Canada's newest citizens and newest residents. And it's made me think about the concepts of access, power, and privilege. Who has the power and privilege, and who doesn't? Under my roof are 2 tiny girls who are born to all of the privileges this country has to offer. And it's my duty, and their father's duty, to teach them the responsibilities that go hand in hand with those gifts. And I spend every single day with a wonderful woman who cannot access most of what this incredible country has to offer. There are 250,000 people like Lynn arriving in Canada every year, not to mention the hundreds of thousands of temporary foreign workers also coming to our shores, and that's another category in the news quite a bit lately. These numbers are changing our country very, very quickly. According to Statistics Canada, growth in the labour force today is entirely attributable to immigration. And by 2030, net population growth will be entirely attributable to immigration. So just think about those 2 statistics for a second. What it's essentially saying, when they say growth, when StatsCan says growth, they mean anemic growth. It's basically holding our numbers steady. So if you're, as a country, only holding your numbers steady, you better darn well be sure that you're making the most of every single individual that makes up that total. In order for growth, you need to grow. And if you're not growing, you need to make the most of every single human in that population. Otherwise, your country moves backwards. And that is the most ridiculous thing for a country like Canada, where we have only the opportunity to move forwards. And these trends will only come into sharper focus by 2017. Now, not all of the 250,000 who come to Canada have stories like Lynn. There are very, very many happy stories. People who come to well-paying jobs, that have family who are already here. But no matter how smooth the transition is, it's never easy to come to a new country. I'm not actually here to talk about immigrant job placement. It's not my particular area of expertise, and there are dozens, if not hundreds, of other organizations that are focused on helping new immigrants with job placement, language training. You've got one of the best of the best here in Winnipeg, the Immigrant Centre. And in fact, Manitoba is a bright spot in Canada in terms of immigrant integration. Really, the rest of Canada has a lot to learn from this province. I also believe that economic necessity and self-interest, and not necessarily goodwill, will help us solve the problem of underutilizing talent. And that's not a noble thing to say, and I still worry that it's too little, too late. I'm actually worried about other types of integration, social, political, and cultural, those elements that can be seen as nice to do things rather than must do. I have 2 daughters who are born to the established system, who will, in all likelihood, have the same types of wonderful opportunities I did to learn from this country and to start to shape it. And as their shepherd in this life, I already know and understand the system and can guide them as they grow. What's more, their papa and I have friends who can help them along the way. So if the girls are interested in media, or if they're interested in getting into business or anything else, we can call on our friends to say, could you give our girls a hand? That's what power and privilege look like in Canadian society. It's not only economic fortune, and one should never, ever, ever discount that, but it's knowing how to navigate the landscape, being connected to who's who, feeling welcome no matter where you are in the country, and being able and encouraged to play a wider role in society. These are the elements that I worry are missing for our newest citizens. At the Institute for Canadian Citizenship, integration for our newest citizens is our focus. We run a program that enables the wider community to plan and host citizenship ceremonies. In fact, we host ceremonies right here in this very room. So we bring the wider Winnipeg community in here and say welcome to our newest citizens. We also run another program, the Cultural Access Pass, that gives our newest citizens and their kids the ability to visit more than 1,200 cultural attractions nationwide for free in the first year after becoming a Canadian citizen. So the Winnipeg Art Gallery, soon the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, and many, many others in the city and across the province. And as Eve mentioned earlier, new citizens are also jumping onto Via Rail. And so we had one new citizen who tweeted her entire way across the country. It was just so much fun to read her tweets. Oh, look at all the trees, look at the water, look at the rocks. Look at all the trees, look at the water, look at the rocks. But we're focused on opening up everything Canada has to offer to our newest citizens so that thousands of people and organizations can say welcome and come in and join us to our newest citizens. And it's by opening the doors to institutions with a hearty and genuine welcome that will help the integration process, and in turn, it helps these institutions build their audience of the future. But while the ICC's programs are focused on Canada's newest citizens, we think about all Canadians. And this is where I have two ideas for you to consider for our sesquicentennial. And maybe you'll think about them this afternoon, because social, cultural, and political integration is fundamental for all Canadians, whether your family's been here for 4 years, for 4 centuries like mine, or for forever like our First Peoples. The first builds on our work with citizenship ceremonies, at which new citizens swear an oath to Canada. Now, those of us born here generally never have a chance to attend one of these ceremonies unless you're a guest of a new citizen. In 2017, I'd like to see every Canadian swear an oath to Canada. And it doesn't have to be the one that the government prescribes. In fact, I think it would be even more powerful to hear the oaths that Canadians would write for themselves to their country. And the second idea is that on Canada Day 2017, it's my hope that every single cultural institution across the country will open its doors for free for everyone. What better way to get to know a country than by exploring it inside and out? While these are two relatively small gestures, they both carry symbolic weight. With the first, we're asking every single Canadian to consider how they give to their country and what Canada means to them. And with the second, we're helping all Canadians discover the thousands and thousands of different interpretations of what it means to be Canadian. And what these ideas mean for Canada is that I, along with my girls, Paul, all of you, Lynn, and millions of others, will commit or recommit themselves to this extraordinary country, and together we'll make it the most welcoming, inclusive, and generous place that, hands down, on this earth is the best place to live, to work, and to play. Thank you very much. Merci, miigwech.
Question. Okay.